if you're going to do the attack, so please make sure it ends everything with the Islamic Republic, so we're not left with the aftermath after. So they have switched their strategy from pushing for no attack to, now that the attack is happening, make sure it's complete. So that's a
Yes.
nice switch that we're seeing from the Saudis, which means that they probably have seen the writing on the wall, which is encouraging.
I mean, the other thing is, I think Trump has to strike the regime there. The thing is, why it's actually for the future, because he's going to cripple China with that. He's going to cripple the Russians with that. Why I'm saying this is because China is relying actually on Israel's oil. So the Russians have,
And
at the end of the day, the
on Iran,
Russians
on
and the
Iran's
Chinese,
oil, you mean?
yeah, Iran's oil, yes.
Yeah.
That's the Chinese, which are relying on 90% of the oil in China comes from them. So if Trump hits,
90%, is that right?
yeah,
Okay, I don't know.
you can
Okay.
go check it
I
on
don't
the
think it's
exchange and
It's not
90%, but
90.
okay.
It's not 90.
It's
It's
not
was
less,
90.
it
but
was
It's
it
big.
was
It's big.
and
It's significant.
it was in
Yeah.
2019 it was 90% roundabout. Okay, I don't know now the new numbers anymore, but it's a hell of a ton of oil which comes from there to China. So if Trump's hitting or gets that oil, or the Americans, so to say, stop the oil flowing to China, Russia will not
Yep.
have any support from China anymore. China is done. Yeah. So I think it's
Yeah,
like a
it would be a major leverage against China, especially given that China has major leverage over the West regarding rare earth metals. So
yes.
now that America has Venezuela's oil on its side, and if it gets also Iran's oil on its side, then it will have a major leverage against the Chinese. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But China's, yeah. So the
Thank you. All right.
90% that you're saying is the other way around. 90% of the Islamic Republic, like of Iran's oil, is going to China, but China's source of total crude oil from Iran is only 13 to 15% of its oil, which is very significant. Very significant.
Yes, yes. Okay,
Because
but now if you like, I think it was yesterday or day before
yep.
yesterday, the Saudi
All right,
Arabian decided to bomb, blah blah
we need to
blah.
move.
Also,
All right, thank you. Sorry, guys, if I'm rushing you because the list is big, but thank you for your points. There was a really good points. Okay, so we have Sabina also on the list. Let me add to her. Okay, so the list I have right now is Kelly, Ariana, Brandon, Jeffrey, Danielle, Ashkan, and then Sabina. All right, so Kelly.
Hi. Raleigh told me about you guys, so I'm new here. Looking forward to joining. I think I just looked through your chat quickly, and you guys have some really interesting topics. I wanted to ask a question about: have you been following these like Muslim cities that are being like in Texas? They're trying to build one, and do you think they're trying to implement Sharia law?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you like, but Sharia law that will conflict with, like when I guess when they say Sharia law, I mean, do you think it should be allowed at all, or should we allow it to
No,
like no? Okay, that's kind of what
no,
I
we
was
should
thinking, because
ban them.
this seems wholly incompatible. So how do we do that given our First Amendment?
So, because this is not about freedom of expression, this is about enforcing laws parallel to the laws of your state, which is
Yeah,
basically technically an act of invasion from within. So,
yeah,
what a nation, a state, is basically a governing body that we recognize it by its ability to enforce law, right?
yeah. So
By having law and enforcing law, you are basically competing with the state. You're basically a state within a state. So this, to me, this looks like an invasion from between, because what is a state other than the ability to use force to enforce some laws? And if you're creating a parallel system to that, you're challenging the state that you're under. So that
I
is
would agree.
illegal. Should be.
I would agree. Why are they not?
Because they're wording it as if it's freedom of expression. So instead of having courts, they have councils, right? Instead
Yeah,
of calling it enforcement of law, they're acting like they are basically giving advice. Instead of
uh,
having police, they have this shaming mechanism, right? So it's
Okay.
just a community thing, right? Instead of having laws, these are just
Yeah.
community standards that we have here. So basically, it's basically like they are making it stronger and stronger, but it's really they're trying to make it difficult for you to see that is this a law or this is just our way of living in our community. So they might make it look like if you stand against them, you're standing against their freedom of living the way
With-
they want to live in their community and their standards and their free expression. So it's really there is we don't have a really clear definition for when have you passed the line between this just being a standard that you have in your community and actually having laws and enforcing it through an enforcement mechanism. I don't know
Yeah.
if we need to have a lawyer here to see if there's any clear definitions on how to distinguish between these two.
And of course, they're doing them in the conservative states where it generally take, hey, where it is legal in Texas, you can build a whole master plan community and put
Right.
it all in. It's dangerous.
But eventually they will dance around this line until to the point that they're too big to fight against, because they're going to also become a voting bloc, right? So
Yeah.
they make these cities, so you might at some point become, okay, this is clearly now a state within a state and we have two different laws. So we don't have, so basically you're going to have a situation where they have their own courts, they have their own laws, they have their own enforcement ability, and basically this is a violation of equality under the law, because different people are now dealing with different right now a lot of the family laws are especially different from the laws enforced by the country. But to the point that it becomes too obvious, they might be so big and a unified voting bloc that no politician would dare go against them, because they will immediately basically campaign against them and remove them.
Yeah.
So this is dangerous.
It is. I agree.
Right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Jeffrey, did you want to add to that quickly? Okay, good, go ahead.
So that's one of the points of contention that many different front organizations for Islamic fundamentalist terrorist organizations try to leverage, which is hijack our First Amendment, freedom of religion as
Yeah.
a pretext to lower the entrance barrier for them to set up little centers of gravity that are very hostile in nature. So there was one called Islamburg in New York State back in the 2007, and that was actually a offshoot or follows, it's hard to pronounce this. It actually followed a framework of Jamaat ul Fuqra that was created by a very particular Islamic fundamentalist from Pakistan, and they were at times engaging in paramilitary training that made a lot of people go, "Oh shit!" They're
Yeah.
like, "Boy!" So there's some things like that going on in Texas, not the least of which is the main point of what is it? What is the main point of the inroads that Islamic fundamentalists are trying to use to wiggle their way into red states? Well, they don't like LGBT either, and that's people in red states rightly, and this comes from someone who's in that community, by the way. you know, there's a legitimate concern for the left co-option and radicalization of the LGBT community as cannon fodder against elements that the left has been conditioned to view as their political opposition. And so this is the Islamic fundamentalist trying to take advantage of the co-radicalized response and to lower the entrance barrier for them to create those centers of gravity. So I totally get. I actually know the people in Texas that are trying to push back against some of the efforts you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that very concern.
Okay. For now, Collin County did, but how long can they last? Thank you.
All right, good question. Also, Kelly, you're now VIP member, so now you have access to all of our other group discussions. All right, so let's go to Ariana.
First of all, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the effort that you're doing for us Iranians. You're literally on YouTube 24/7, so it seems. So thank you a lot.
Thank
Let's
you.
look at. You're welcome. Yesterday, you were saying something, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents about that. You said that Iran is done with religion, and we're going to be secular, and no religion will be involved, right? That's what you said, basically. Am I correct?
No, no, no. No, I said that is the attitude of some people. I'm not making a prediction about what's going to happen. I'm just saying I am reflecting the attitude of so many people I'm hearing. I don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I was just saying, so I'm not making a prediction. I'm just saying that's what many people are telling me they're going to do.
Yes.
What's your prediction?
But so our culture has been constructed and built on Aryanism, and Aryanism basically means Mithraism and Zoroastrianism before Islam invaded. And our people were not.
Means what? Sorry, Aryanism means what as Zoroastrianism? I didn't catch the first one.
Aryanism basically means both Mithraism and Zoroastrianism. It comes from our ethics, right? It's not just a certain people group who migrated from, let's say, modern day Ukraine to Iran right now. It's not just a people, but we also had a philosophy, right? So before Islam invaded Iran, like, for instance, King Darius the Great, he was a Zoroastrian and he saw himself as a servant because in Zoroastrianism, the philosophy is about good thoughts, good deeds, right? And he was the one, he called himself, I'm the king of the Aryans, and he was the one who financed the second temple, even though Kurosh, Cyrus the Great, was the one who freed the Jews from Babylonian slavery. Darius was the one who actually paid for the temple. So when I say Aryan, I do not mean basically racial superiority or anything racial for that matter. I'm talking about a philosophy. Iranians were either religiously Zoroastrian or they were philosophically Zoroastrian. So Zoroastrianism is all about Arsha, it's about truth, and it's about aligning yourself with goodness and your personal responsibility to be good. There is no savior who comes and saves you. There is no sin nature. There is no hell. There is a place where you go to be purified, but that place is not hell. But basically, everything comes down to progressing life and being good to everyone inclusively. Because it's not a racial philosophy, it's all about an ethical philosophy. Actually, it was the first monotheistic ethical monotheism. It makes everyone responsible for their deeds. And when you say we are Iranians because of our culture, because of our ancient culture. For instance, we are Iranian for our Yalda. And Yalda is also all about this festival of light overcoming darkness. It's also a philosophy. So all of our festivals, all of our ideas, the fact that we are overcoming Islam and reviving our culture is all about basically either Mithraism or Zoroastrianism, which are very similar. So I would think that if we want to actually revive our culture, restore our culture, decolonize from Islam, our constitution should be built on our values. And those are the same values on the basis of which humanism came about, right? We came up with the first human rights bill, right? And that was predicated on Zoroastrianism. So you do not have to believe in God to be a ethical Zoroastrian or a philosophical Zoroastrian. So to think good, to speak good, to do good to others inclusively. So I do think that secularism, it's when you study what secularism actually means, it only existed and it's only visible when after Christianity. It is something that is only possible on biblicalism because it allows it somehow. And the reason why was because the kings, the
Ariana,
kings.
can you because a lot of people are also
Sorry,
waiting is if it's okay. Yeah, like okay.
yeah, could
Go
I?
on. Make your
Could I?
point. No,
Yeah.
no, continue.
The
Continue. I'm
point
just
is
saying that, yeah.
when you say we're gonna be secular, then that is secular from Islam. We don't want to do anything with Islam. We don't want to become secular from Islam. We want our own culture because becoming secular from Islam means because our last constitution was based on Shia, on Islamic law. We don't want anything to do with Islam, but we want a constitution based on our values and not our secularism is basically that you have the powers of the church. How do you say
All right.
that in
I
English?
get it. So I get your point. So
Okay.
before I respond to you, just short answer, very short answer, because I need to say some. Then let me speak. Okay. So Ariana, do you accept Princess of Pahlavi as our leader?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Princess of Pahlavi is advocating for total secularism,
I know.
all religion out of politics, not just Islam, just religion as a whole.
I
Right.
know.
So Yeah, okay. So that's one point. I think when it comes to Zoroastrianism, we have to separate the cultural aspects from
Yes,
the religious aspects. I
yes.
completely agree with valuing the values and the culture and our ancient history from it, and
Good.
all everything that basically we inherited from a philosophy perspective of it, but not the religious aspect of it, right?
Yes, that
And
was my
when
point.
it that is your point. Well, that will
Yes,
naturally happen without us having to. That we could be completely secular, okay, while still benefiting from the values of our ancient culture, because you don't need to you don't need to say we need to be secular only against Islam. We could be completely secular, but the values that comes from our ancient culture is so deep rooted in our people and in our history and in our minds that it will affect our decision making process when it comes to our laws naturally, without us having to say Zoroastrianism as a religion needs to have a say in politics. It will naturally, from the bottom up, have its influence. Do you understand what I'm saying?
exactly. But only when you say, I'm not invoking religion, I'm saying our Zoroastrian philosophy, because I know religion is something you have to choose for. That is not something you can put into your constitution. But what I'm saying is, instead of saying secular, and I don't agree with Prince Reza Pahlavi or King Reza Pahlavi, I love him in both ways. I don't agree with him because prior to this, he called himself Muslim as well. And now he's not saying that anymore. So that part of him, that's not my thing, right? That is his thing. But when you say a civilizational Iran instead of a secular
Right.
Iran, I have more with that. But that isn't maybe a discussion not for now because I feel like you want to. Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, that's okay. Let me just make my last points regarding this. I agree more with Princess of Pahlavi, because secularism, once you open the door, then the door will become wide open, and we want to basically allow no religion in politics, even if you like some of them, because it's really hard to basically be selective. Once you open that door, then that door is wide open, and
Yeah,
we don't want to allow any religion.
let's have
But
this conversation later because I'm really,
after,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And when do you have
Yeah.
time? Like, can I come back later or what?
Yeah, I mean, we have these discussions every time on
This is my
here, so we
first
could
time
talk
here,
about.
so I don't know how it goes. So first, do you get everyone to speak, and then later you go into a dialogue, or how is it organized?
I'm going to make you a premium member, okay? And our premium discussions are smaller, so people have less time to speak, okay? So tomorrow we have our discussions same time every day, right? And our premium calls are smaller, okay? So, but let me go through my points regarding these guys. One thing that I agree with Princess Pahlavi on is that even though I am very, very, very anti-Islamic, I'm not anti-Muslim, okay? And I mean, Muhammad Reza Shah was a Muslim, and he built Iran unlike no one else, right? And
Yes, but his mistakes were
yeah.
Islamic.
Ariana, like, it's my turn to speak. So let me make my points. I'm gonna go like Muhammad Reza Shah didn't make that many mistakes, but let me just make these points. Okay, so Iran needs to work for all of its citizens, including the Muslims. So even though I am very aggressively anti-Islam, I want in Iran to be a good place for all Iranian citizens, including the Muslim citizens, right? Also, I agree with Ariana regarding the word Aryan. I need everybody to understand that Aryan is not a dirty word. The Nazis made it a dirty word the same way that they made swastika into a hate symbol, even though it wasn't. The swastika is a symbol for peace. So they changed it. The word Aryan also, it just means like a noble person. It's a set of ideas, set of values. It's a language group. It has nothing to do with an blood or an ethnic group or anything like that. So we have nothing to do with that. That's your mess. Don't connect that to us. In fact, Iran itself means the land of Aryans. And by the way, Armin, my name, means the
Protector of the
guardian of the
Aryan. Yes.
Yeah, Armin means the guardian of the Aryan land, by the way. So there's that. Inside Iran, by the way, when it comes to Zoroastrianism, most Iranians are not Zoroastrian. However, they respect Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism has turned into a symbol of, so we have a very small minority of Zoroastrians, but non-Zoroastrian Iranians respect Zoroastrianism and they enjoy its symbols, and they also consider the symbols of Zoroastrianism to represent Iran, patriotism, nationalism, and our deep history, even if they're not Zoroastrians themselves. And we could celebrate Zoroastrianism without actually believing in the religion. We celebrate its customs, we celebrate the culture, we celebrate its history, we celebrate the symbol without necessarily believing in, in the metaphysical aspect of it. All right, so we need to move on. It seemed like I missed Rebecca. Did I miss Rebecca? Yes, Rebecca, but I think she raised her hand and I didn't include her in this. Rebecca.
I can start moderating now if you want, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, yes.
Hello, is my volume all right?
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to bring up a point regarding the very first topic that came up regarding talk about America is late, they should have acted sooner, betrayal and all that kind of thing. Because those kind of narratives are very easily manufactured or hijacked by people working for, in this case, the Islamic Republic. So we have to be very careful when following or listening to those narratives that they're not being used as a psyop. So when we see that or engage with it, just take it with a grain of salt. You don't know who's saying it, who's relaying it, what their motives are. It might be hostile. That's all I wanted to say.
We have been fighting against the narrative. We tell people, even if they think it's okay, what they're saying that is very much working on the Islamic Republic side, right? Even if you believe in it, it's not very strategic position to have right now. We have been on the Persian side. We have actually been repeating what you've been saying, Rebecca, a lot. So yeah, I completely agree with you. All right, so
next we have
guys,
Brandon.
yeah, okay.
And the current list I have is Brandon, Daniel, Dome, and Jeffrey. If you want to speak and you're not on that list, please raise your hand again.
No, so I have Brandon, Jeffrey, Daniel, Ashkan, Eton, Sabina, and Lucy. So after Brandon, I have Jeffrey. Oh, okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We all agree that Brandon is now. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Armin. I wanted to add to your point and try and kind of quell some concerns as well. You have to remember, with these so-called negotiations or that proposition from President Trump, if you look at what that proposition is, I think that's something the Iranian regime would never accept. I mean, if we woke up tomorrow and it turns out they accepted it, I would be completely shocked. You also have to remember, look what just happened mere months ago when we bombed their nuclear facilities. We literally had them sitting down for a meeting while this occurred. It was a complete diversion tactic. And I think, honestly, that's exactly what we're looking at right now. You have to remember, once you pull a move like that on any regime, they're never going to trust any negotiation with you. At that point, you're already basically in a de facto state of war. There are going to be no negotiations, especially with that kind of a scope. So I think that really what we are looking at is President Trump using a lot of diversion tactics, keeping them on their toes, keeping them confused. And I think ultimately military action is inevitable. It just unfortunately takes a lot of time to amass that kind of military power in the region.
Yep. So I completely agree with you. However, what the Islamic Republic is thinking, in my opinion, is that if they accept some of the terms, they are going to be able to give ammunition to the isolationists on the left and right inside the United States to pressure the Trump administration by saying, look, they even agreed to this. So give enough political capital to people in DC to be able to get Trump back. So they were doing, yeah, Jeffrey is agreeing with me. So that is the strategy, is to basically say, like, look, I agreed to this and this and this, and still I'm making a big noise about that to basically try to, and also maybe their understanding is Trump is unpredictable. So if all of a sudden Trump needs an excuse to back off, because sometimes Trump might say like I want 100 and then he accepts 80 or 50 or 60. So they're saying let's give the 50 to Trump so that if one day he wakes up and decides like I'm not going to do this, he has something in his hand so he could basically demonstrate as a win to say like, oh, I already made them do this, so that's why I have a good enough excuse not to attack. So they want to be able to give Trump an excuse to basically back off and also give ammunition to the isolationists in the Washington D.C.
And I will add, add to that on the isolationist point, which is a very good point that I haven't seen, really talked about, I think, enough. We saw a lot of that with Ukraine, and it was legit, like in conservative circles, and I'm very, very involved in conservative, political circles. We saw a lot of opposition to involvement in Ukraine. But what's interesting is, I think that a lot of what I'm seeing is, as far as that point with Iran and not wanting to be involved in Iran or wanting to help free the people of Iran, I think a lot of it is astroturfed. It certainly seems that way to me. I think that there's a lot more support for the people of Iran in that situation and being involved in that than there was with Ukraine.
Right, and to your point, it also is like the dumbest missed opportunity by United States and Israel. I mean, we are. This is for the four headaches that United States has to deal with is like China, Russia, North Korea, and the Islamic Republic. We are getting closest. This is the best opportunity for United States to be able to get rid of the Islamic Republic without any troops on the ground. Missing this window of opportunity just doesn't make any sense, especially given that if we do miss this opportunity, the Islamic Republic can go both nuclear and also have 2,000 ballistic missiles or whatever. The terrorist capability might get to a point where they have to treat it like North Korea, basically just like accept that they are going to be here for a very long time. So given that this window of opportunity has been open for United States, it makes absolutely no sense for them not to take advantage of it. So that's why
agree.
we're yeah.